Well, hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and today's episode will be a doozy because either it will come off as controversial or it will come off as a memoriam or celebration of life, if you will, or a celebration of death. It depends on which side of the fence you are currently standing. And today we're going to discuss the life and times of one Orenthal James Simpson. Yes, O.J. Simpson, who passed away on April the 10th of 2024. And this is a polarizing man. This is a very complicated, if you will, individual, because never in my lifetime have I experienced since a man, just one individual, tear a country apart like O.J. Simpson did. Now, Donald Trump did it, but Donald Trump was always an idiot. So we're not talking about Trump, but I'm talking about O.J. Simpson, who at one point was America's sweetheart, man. He was the poster child of black people. This was the black man who was allowed in the house. You know what I'm saying? He was that black man who was loved by blacks and whites. And that was rare. It's still rare. You know, not too many black men in particular hold that distinguished honor of being loved by all races. But there was a portion of O.J. Simpson's life where he was beloved by both races. And it all came crashing down. Now, there was a time when he pulled on blacks. And he didn't really pull on them. He just had a stupid opinion about it when they asked about being black or whatever. And he was like, well, I'm not black, I'm O.J. Wait, what? Wait, what you mean? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But in any event, going back to when he played football, a Hall of Fame career, when he got into movies with the Towering Inferno and, of course, the Naked Gun films. And that's going to be the film we're going to review today, the very first Naked Gun from 1988. But he was loved. And the Hearst commercials, when he's running through the airport, jumping over suitcases and stuff. Everybody loved OJ. And then the bottom fell out in 1994 when the murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman, were brutally murdered at her home or in front of her home, wherever it was. And, of course, there was the trial of the century that ensued where OJ was put on trial for murder and he was acquitted. And it just ripped the country apart. From that moment on, everything changed. I know a lot of people will go back and pinpoint America changed when Obama was elected. America changed when Trump was elected. America changed when 9/11 happened and so on and so forth. The pandemic and all that stuff. But I say the biggest change happened at the OJ trial. That's when everybody's eyes just opened up. And I have my opinions about what happened with that particular case, and I'm going to express those opinions when we talk about it, because we can't not talk about it, because it's a big portion of O.J. Simpson's life. But the main reason I wanted to talk about him today is because of the headline that broke when he passed away. It wasn't Hall of Fame running back O.J. Simpson has passed away. It wasn't actor O.J. Simpson has passed away. No, the headlines on every thumbnail that you saw, even the alerts on my phone, the notification on my phone said this when he died. Acquitted murderer. Acquitted murderer O.J. Simpson passes away. I've never seen a headline like that. If you were acquitted from murder, whether you believe he did it or not. That's that. That's the end of that. That's that. You know, you can have your opinions. I certainly have mine. But at the end of the day, man, that trial, it went the way it went. You probably don't agree with the verdict. That's fine. There's a lot of trials. There's a lot of cases that have went before juries and judges that didn't go the way it was supposed to go. And we just had to live with it. But for some strange reason, society, pop culture, whatever you want to call it, for 30 years has not let this go. And even with the man dead and gone, they still have not let it go. And it really baffles my mind because you have a man right now, as we speak, who is currently running for president of the United States, having committed murder as far as I know, but has done some vile things, and people just turn a blind eye to it. You know, they act like it doesn't exist, like it never happened. And all the evidence is there. All the people around him are falling like dominoes, but yet and still, there's a contingent of people, a large contingent of people who believe this man is innocent and should be the president of this country. And that baffles my mind. But when it comes to this particular individual and the crime that he was accused of, it just stuck with him his whole life, even though he was acquitted in a fair trial. Now, it was a stupid trial. It was the most baffling trial that I've ever witnessed. Now, granted, I don't sit down and watch trials like that, but you had no choice in 1994. You had no choice. It was on every station. It was in every newspaper. It was everywhere. And so you had no choice but to follow this trial from beginning to end. I mean, starting with the white Bronco, the chase beyond that started it all. You know, that was Fast and Furious before Fast and Furious, even though it was the slowest chase you ever want to witness on television. They actually stopped TV. It was breaking news. It came in. I remember that. We were watching something. It was either it was baseball playoffs or basketball playoffs. I forgot what it was, but it was something big on television when this happened. But it was breaking news, and you get the helicopter footage of this quote unquote chase. It was the white Bronco with OJ in the back seat with a gun to his head. It was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable to bear witness to. But it is what it is. I just want to go over all that man accomplished, because whether he did that crime or not, he did do some other things that do need to be acknowledged. And since I see nobody else doing it, I guess the ball falls in my lap. So I'm gonna go ahead on and touch in on some of the accomplishments of one O.J. Simpson, because before all that, before the murders and the accusations of murder and the trial and all this here, the man was one of the greatest running backs to ever put on a helmet in the NFL. He broke basically every record there was. They've been broken ever since, but at the time, this man was incredible. He was an incredible running back. Now, this was before my time, but I did go back and watch highlights and do research on it, on his career years ago. This is even before all that foolishness happened, but because my dad always talked about O.J. Simpson and how good of a player he was and enjoyed watching him. And so I would go back and watch clips of how he ran the ball, because I wanted to be a running back, but, you know, I wasn't all that good. But that's neither here nor there. And so I would watch old running backs, and he was one of the ones I watched, and he was phenomenal. A phenomenal running back. Unstoppable, really. But Orenthal James Simpson, commonly known as O.J. Simpson, or the Juice. The Juice is loose. He was born on July the 9th, 1947, and he passed away on April the 10th, 2024, from prostate cancer. He was a football player, an actor, He played in the NFL for 11 seasons, primarily for the Buffalo Bills, and is regarded as one of the greatest running backs of all time. His professional success was overshadowed by, of course, the trial and the controversial acquittal of the murders of his former wife and her friend, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, back in 1994. O.J. Simpson played college football for the USC Trojans, where he won the Heisman Trophy as a senior, and he was selected first overall by the Buffalo Bills in the 1969 NFL Draft. During his 9 seasons with the Bills, he received 5 consecutive Pro Bowls and first team All-Pro selections from 1972 to 1976. He also led the lead in rushing yards 4 times, in rushing touchdowns twice, and points scored in 1975 as well. He became the first NFL player to rush for more than 2,000 yards in a single season, earning him Most Valuable Player, the MVP award in the NFL, and is the only NFL player to do so in a 14-game regular season. And see, what you got to understand, now the NFL, their seasons are 17 games. And you see running backs, even now is hard. Well, it's hard now because they throw the ball more. But even now, nobody gets close to 2,000 yards rushing. It is very difficult. And that's with 3 extra games. He did it in 14 games. That is phenomenal. O.J. Simpson also holds the record for the single season yards per game average. And this is the average. 143.1 yards per game. And now for all you football fans out there, you know that is astronomical. That hasn't been touched. He still holds that record, by the way. He still holds it. That's how much of a beast O.J. Simpson was on the football field. He was phenomenal. After retiring from the San Francisco 49ers in 1979, he acted in films and television, becoming a sports broadcaster, and was a spokesman for a wide variety of products and companies, which most notably, like I mentioned earlier, Hertz Rental Car. He was later inducted into multiple Football Hall of Fames, including the NFL Hall of Fame. It all started in 1947. Orenthal James Simpson was born in San Francisco, California. OJ was the son of Anise, an administrator at a psychiatric ward, and Jimmy Lee, who was a cook, a Federal Reserve Bank employee, and a custodian for both the bank he worked in and a private club. His father was also a well-known drag queen in the San Francisco area. Later in life, Jimmy Simpson announced that he was gay. He died of AIDS in 1986. OJ's maternal grandparents are from right here in Louisiana. His aunt is the one who gave him the name Orenthal, which she said was the name of a French actor that she liked. He was called OJ from birth and did not know that his name was Orenthal until his 3rd grade teacher told him that. He didn't know until he was in the 3rd grade, and his teacher is the one who told him that his name was Orenthal. That's crazy. OJ had one brother, and his name was Melvin Leon Thurman Simpson, one living sister, Shirley Simpson, and one deceased sister, Carmela Simpson. OJ grew up in San Francisco and lived with his family in the housing projects of the low-income neighborhood. As a child, OJ developed rickets, which is this condition that is like soft bones, I believe, in children, and it causes bow legs, and it stunts your growth, and his bone pains, and a large forehead, which he did have. And you know, and it also it was just it's bad. I've heard of rickets, but I've never known nobody to have them. But he had to wear braces on his legs until he was 5 years old, uh, giving him that bow-legged look that or that bow-legged stance that he had throughout his life. He earned money by scalping tickets and collecting seat cushions at a stadium. After his parents separated in 1952, when he was about 4 years old, him and his sisters and brothers were raised by their mother. In his early teenage years, OJ joined a street gang and was briefly incarcerated in the San Francisco Youth Guidance Center. His future wife, Marguerite, whom he dated in high school, described him as really an awful person then. And some may say it continued, but that's neither here nor there. After his third arrest, OJ happened to meet baseball star Willie Mays, who encouraged the youth to avoid trouble. He said it helped persuade him to reform and change his ways, so to speak. At high school, OJ played for the school football team, and he earned money by organizing dances and charging admission. He graduated in 1965, and although OJ was an all-city football player in high school, his mediocre high school grades prevented him from attracting the interest of many colleges around that time. After a childhood friend injury in the Vietnam War influenced OJ to stay out of the military, he enrolled in City College of San Francisco in 1965. He played football both ways as a running back and a defensive back, and was named the Junior College All-American team as a running back. City College won the Prune Bowl against Long Beach State, and many colleges sought OJ as a transfer student for football. In 1967, OJ enrolled in USC, University of Southern California, in Los Angeles, where he was admired as a young football fan. He had also considered going to University of Utah. He played running back with the Trojans for head coach John McKay in 1967 and 1968. OJ led the nation in rushing both years under McKay. In 1967, he had 1,543 yards with 13 touchdowns. And in 1968, he had 1,880 yards on 383 carries. This dude was insane. As a junior in 1967, OJ was a close runner-up for the Heisman Trophy. He lost out to quarterback Greg Beban, who played for UCLA at the time. In that year's Victory Bowl rival game against the team, USC was down by 6 points in the fourth quarter with under 11 minutes remaining. And with the ball on their own 36-yard line, USC backup quarterback Toby Page called an audible on 3rd and 7. OJ 64-yard touchdown run tied the game, and the extra point provided the 21-20 lead, which was the final score of that game. This was the biggest play in what is regarded as one of the greatest football games in the 20th century. Another dramatic touchdown in the same game is the subject of Arnold Freiberg's oil painting, OJ Breaks for Daylight. OJ also won the Walter Camp Award in 1967 and was a two-time unanimous All-American. As a senior in 1968, OJ rushed for 1,700 yards and 22 touchdowns in the regular season, earning the Heisman Trophy, the Maxwell Award, and the Walter Camp Award. He held the record for the Heisman's largest margin of victory for 51 years, defeating runner-up Leroy Keys by 1,750 points. In the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day, number 2 USC faced top-ranked Ohio State. O.J. Simpson ran for 171 yards, including a 80-yard touchdown run and a 27-16 loss. In the 1969 NFL draft, O.J. Simpson was selected number 1 overall by the Buffalo Bills, who finished the previous season 1-12-1. The worst team in the NFL that season. They took Simpson, but he demanded the largest contract in professional sports history, $650,000 over 5 years, which, if you adjust it for inflation today, that would be $4 million. This led to a standoff between the Bills owner, Ralph Wilson, and OJ, who threatened to become an actor and skip professional football. And eventually, the Bills broke and paid him that deal. To summarize OJ's NFL career, OJ gained 11,236 rushing yards throughout his NFL career, placing him second on the NFL's all-time rushing list when he retired. He now stands at 21st all-time since then. I mean, it's been 45 years. It was bound to break. But he was named NFL Player of the Year in 1973. He played in 6 Pro Bowls. He was the only player in NFL history to rush over 2,000 yards in 14-game season, the only player to rush for over 200 yards in 6 different games in his career. From 1972 to 1976, OJ averaged 1,540 yards rushing per game. Not per game, per season. If it was per game, that's just ridiculous. But yeah, yeah, 1,500 yards per season. That was his average. He also averaged 5.1 yards per carry. He won the NFL rushing title not once, not twice, not 3 times, ladies and gentlemen, but 4 times. OJ was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1985, his first year of eligibility. In 2019, he was named to the NFL 100th anniversary all-time team. Throughout his stellar NFL career, OJ only played in 1 playoff game throughout his Hall of Fame career. Just 1. And that was in 1974 in the division round game between the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Around this time, Pittsburgh Steelers were the steel curtain and all. It's completely understandable. OJ was held to 49 yards rushing on 15 carries to go with 3 catches for 37 yards and a touchdown as the Bills lost that game 32-14. Yeah, it was a slaughter. But like I said, it was the steel curtain. It was going to happen. OJ acquired the nickname Juice as a play on OJ, a common abbreviation for orange juice, of course. Juice is also the acronym for electricity and electrical power. So it's more of a metaphor of how much of a powerful entity he was. So the Buffalo Bills offensive line during the time of OJ's peakness, I guess you could say, were nicknamed the Electric Company because they were the ones powering the juice. Moving on to OJ Simpson's acting career. He actually started acting before he played football, coincidentally. OJ began acting while he was still at USC and appeared in an episode of Dragnet in an uncredited role as a potential recruit to the LAPD. He became a professional actor before playing professional football, appearing in the first episode of the series Medical Center while negotiating his contract with the Buffalo Bills. Before his murder trial, sports writer Ralph Wiley claimed in 2002, white people consider O.J. Simpson a unifying symbol of all races. I gotta laugh at that now because trust me, they did not feel that in 1994. That quickly changed, but this was true. This was true before that. Before 1994, that's how he was considered. I mean, he was loved by everybody, especially whites. I'm not trying to make this a race thing, but it's the truth. White people loved O.J. Simpson, which is why my theory, which is why there was so much vitriol when that trial took place, when those murders took place, because they felt they were stabbed in the back. They being white people, they were stabbed in the back by this black man, the one black man they let in the house, and he basically peed on the carpet, and that's how they feel. That's exactly what happened with this whole murder thing, or murder accusation, murder charges, whatever that took place. O.J. Simpson avoided starring in blaxploitation films. He turned away from those, I guess, to be considered an actor and not a black actor. Moving away from that black label that he was so fondly against for some strange, unearthly reason. But he chose like the third or the fourth lead in films rather than the lead in films. His Hearst commercials from 1975 benefited his acting career, but he sometimes unintentionally chose unpositive roles. Now, while in the NFL, O.J. appeared in productions such as the miniseries Roots in 1977. He was also in The Klansman in 1974, The Towering Inferno in 1974, the Cassandra Crossing in 1977, and Capricorn 1 in 1978. In 1979, he started his own film production company, Orenthal Productions, while dealing mostly in made-for-TV movies such as Goldie and the Boxer, two of them, in fact, one in 1979 and one in 1981. O.J. Simpson has said that he didn't take acting seriously until he saw Lee Marvin and Richard Barton on the set of The Klansman. O.J. is most notably known in the acting sphere for playing Detective Norbert in the 3 Naked Gun films in 1988, 1991, and 1994 with Leslie Nielsen, Priscilla Presley, and George Kennedy. But in court, according to Arnold Schwarzenegger himself now if it's a lie, Arnold told it, but O.J. Simpson was considered by James Cameron to play the Terminator in The Terminator in 1984. But the role of Kyle Reese was going to be played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. But James Cameron ultimately cast Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, and he cast Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese. Now, the reasoning. Now, James Cameron has said this isn't true, but they went back and saw where he did say this. James Cameron said that O.J. Simpson was too nice. he projected too nice of a person to be cast as this killing machine in this film. Now, had he waited 10 years, he would have found out different. But yes, that's the reason O.J. Simpson did not play the Terminator, and we're better for it. But in all jokes aside, without the murder and all that other stuff, that was the right choice. The Arnold Schwarzenegger needed to be the Terminator. He is the Terminator. Besides his acting career, O.J. worked as a commentator on Monday Night Football and the NFL on NBC. Now, going into the 90s, it weren't too much popping for him. At least in the early 90s, he did try to get a TV series started, Frogman, which they did shoot a 2-hour-long pilot for that show, and it was described as a A-Team like adventure film or adventure show, and it was completed in 1994. Unfortunately, that was the same year, actually a couple of months before the two murders happened to Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, and so that put the kibosh on Frogman. But there's no point delaying the inevitable. Let's get into this. Let's get into this murder trial and these murders that took place of the ex-wife of O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown, and Ron Goldman. And let's go through the history first. The history of it. They being OJ and Nicole met in 1977 when he was 30 years old and she was 18 years old. And Nicole Brown was working as a waitress at this private club. They began dating, although at the time, OJ Simpson was still married. He was married at the time, but he filed divorce from his first wife in March of 1979. Same. That was a good month because that was when I came into the world. So my birth signified the end to his marriage, even though you can honestly say his first marriage ended a long time before that. OJ and Nicole married on February the 2nd, 1985, and had two children together. Their daughter Sydney, who was born in 1985, and their son Justin, who was born in 1988. According to Lenore Walker, the Simpson Brown marriage was a textbook example of domestic abuse. Nicole signed a prenuptial agreement and was prohibited from working while married. Nicole wrote that she felt conflicted about notifying police of the abuse because she was financially dependent on OJ. Nicole Brown described an incident in which OJ broke her arm during a fight. In order to prevent him from being arrested, she had told emergency room staffers that she had fell off of her bicycle. She wrote about him beating her in public during sex and even in front of their family and friends. Of the 62 instances of abuse, the police were notified 8 times, and Simpson was arrested once. On February 25th, 1992, Nicole Brown filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Nicole Brown said that OJ stalked and harassed her after their divorce, an intimidation tactic meant to force the victim to return to the abuser. She documented an incident in which he spied on her having sex with her new boyfriend. Afterwards, Nicole Brown said she felt her life was in danger because OJ had threatened to kill her if he had found her with another man. Around this time, being in fear of her life, she drafted a will. A woman named Nicole, presumed to be Brown, telephoned Sojourner, a woman's shelter, on June the 8th, 1994. She had considered staying at this shelter because she was afraid of what OJ might do to her, as she was refusing his pleas to reconcile their marriage. But on four days later, on June the 12th, 1993, Nicole Brown Simpson and OJ both attended their daughter Sydney's dance recital at her middle school. Afterwards, Nicole Brown and her family went out to eat at a restaurant. They did not invite OJ to join them, however. One of the waiters at the restaurant was Ron Goldman, who had become close friends with Nicole Brown Simpson, in the past few weeks prior to this incident, but was not assigned to their table. He was just working at the restaurant at the time. Nicole Brown and her children went to Ben & Jerry's before returning to their condominium on Bundy Drive, Brentwood. The manager at the restaurant recounted that Brown's mother telephoned the restaurant around 9:37 p.m. asking about a pair of lost eyeglasses. The manager found the glasses and put them in a white envelope, while Goldman took with him as he left the restaurant at the end of his shift at around 9:50 p.m. He intended to drop them off at Nicole Brown Simpson's house. Meanwhile, Simpson ate takeout food from McDonald's with Kato Kalin, a part-time actor and family friend who they gave use to this guest house on the Simpson estate. And rumors circulated that OJ had been on drugs at the time of the murder. And the New York Post reported that the pair had gone to a local Burger King where a prominent drug dealer known as JR later said he sold them crystal meth. Now, Nicole Brown Simpson's neighbors testified that they heard barking coming from outside throughout the night, beginning around 10:15. Around 10:55, a dog walker who lived a few blocks away from Nicole Brown came across Nicole's dog barking at the street outside of her house. The dog, whose legs were covered in blood, followed the man home. He tried to walk the dog back to where he found it, but the dog resisted. Later, he left the dog with the neighboring couple who offered to keep the dog overnight. But the dog was so agitating and barking and irate, I guess, by what he saw or what she saw, whatever the dog is. The couple decided, nah, this ain't gonna work. So they decided to walk the dog back to where they found it. Around midnight, as they reached the area where the dog was found, the dog stopped outside of the home of Nicole Brown Simpson, and the couple saw Brown's body laying outside of the house. Police were called to the scene and found Goldman's body near Nicole Brown's body. The front door of Nicole Brown's condominium was open with the bodies were found, but there was no sign of anybody who entered the building by breaking in or otherwise. So Nicole Brown's body was laying face down and barefooted at the bottom of the stairs leading to the door. The walkway leading to the stairs were covered in blood, but the soles of Brown's feet were completely clean. Based on this evidence, investigators concluded that she was the first person to be killed and, of course, was the intended target. She had been stabbed multiple times in the head and neck, but there were few defensive wounds on her hands, implicating a short struggle to investigators. The final wounds inflicted ran deep into her neck, severing her carotid artery. I probably should have told y'all and gave a warning that it was going to be graphic. I was going to go into detail of what took place, how it all happened here. So this is a warning. This is a trigger warning to anybody that will be upset by this. And I understand if you want to stop listening, but I feel that if we were going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it all. And so, yeah, it's pretty graphic in nature. So, you have been warned. A large bruise on the center of her upper back, where corresponding footprint of her clothing indicated to investigators that after killing Ron Goldman, the assailant returned to Nicole Brown's body, stood on her back, pulled her head back by her hair, and slit her throat. Her larynx could be seen through the gaping hole in her neck, basically to say she was nearly decapitated. That's how violent of stab wounds and the cutting of her throat was. It was vicious. This was a vicious attack. Ron Goldman's body laid nearby, close to a tree and the fence. He had been stabbed multiple times in the body and neck, but there were relatively few defensive wounds on his hand as well, signifying a short struggle too. Forensic evidence from the Los Angeles coroner's office alleged that the assailant stabbed Goldman with one hand while holding him in a chokehold within the other. Near Goldman's body was a blue knit cap, a left hand extra large isotona leather glove, and an envelope containing the glasses that he was returning. Detectives determined that Ron Goldman came to Nicole Brown's house during the killing and that the killer killed him to silence Goldman and remove any witnesses. A trail of the assailant's bloody shoe print ran through the back gate. To the left of some of the footprints were drops of blood from the assailant, who was apparently bleeding on his left hand. Measuring the distance between the prints indicated that the assailant walked rather than run. When he left the scene, he walked away from the murder scene. So, of course, the number one suspect would be O.J. Simpson, which is understandable. I remember when this all went down. That was my that was my thoughts. I was like, well, O.J. did it. He did it. I mean, on the outside looking in, this clearly looks like a crime of passion. This looks like a vicious crime of passion that going by the history of this couple was bound to happen. It's so sad when you hear about the fact that it's just a few days, not even a few, a couple of days prior to this, that Nicole Brown Simpson was looking into going to this abuse shelter, for women, this women's shelter. And she didn't go. If she had went, all of this, none of this would have happened, should I say. None of this would have took place. At least that day, because from all indications show OJ Simpson is just crazy. He was just crazy, and it was bound to happen someday, but maybe it wouldn't have happened that day. And maybe she would have found a way to get out of this peacefully, and OJ would have went and lived his life in peace and harmony. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen, and this took place. Now, before we get into the trial, let me give you my opinion in case you ain't caught on to it right now. Even though I did spoil it and say it. But yeah, do I think OJ did it? Yeah. Yeah, I think he did. I mean, anybody in their right mind who got common sense can tell that he did it. The problem was when it gets to the trial, and I'm not going to go through the trial because the trial is boring. It was boring to watch, and it's even more boring to recite to you. But at the end of the day, it was the prosecution that fumbled the ball. They dropped the ball. This was a layup, and they messed it up. Now, OJ had a dream team. We all know the dream team. It was Robert Kardashian. Yes, that Kardashian, the father of all the Kardashian girls, or young women as they are right now. But yes, he was on the team. Robert Shapiro, and of course, Johnny Cochran. And this was a dream team, and they just tore the prosecution apart in that courtroom. And it was embarrassing to look at it, and I wasn't even, this wasn't a Super Bowl matchup where I was like, man, I hope OJ win or not. I didn't care, but it was like, man, they are destroying these people. It's embarrassing to watch because they looked like deer in headlights, the prosecution. They really did. They looked like deer in headlights, and they didn't know what to do. Every bit of evidence that they released, the defense came and just destroyed it. Your main detective on the case, Mark Furman, we come to find out he's a full-blown racist, and they tore him up. The glove didn't fit. And those infamous words, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit, and that's basically, that did it. And you listen to some of the jurors after this trial, that's what they said. The glove didn't fit. And when you look at, okay, they're right. I mean, how can you convict them? But I'm like, man, you think he can't murder somebody with a small glove? The glove wouldn't have stopped him from stabbing somebody. That logic didn't make sense to me. Now, you have to look at things in its totality. We're talking about Los Angeles, and around this time, racial tension was like at its peak. And I hate saying that because it's always at its peak, but at this time, we're not too far removed from the Rodney King beating, those officers being exonerated and, given a clean record, like nothing happened after everybody had seen the video, which was the first case where video was actually shown of a black man being just brutally beaten by police officers, and nothing happened. And that's why my mind is blown these days when people are shocked when police officers, whether it's a body cam, whether it's a cell phone footage, show them doing these crazy things, beating people, in some cases even killing people, and they're getting off, and they're like, I can't believe it. Really? You can't? We've seen this in 1991, but that's neither here nor there. We're still hot around this time from that. There's a lot of tension going on nationwide, but especially in Los Angeles. And so you have this going on with this racist cop, And all those feelings are conjured up. That helped OJ case, and of course the glove and all this here. Then they the two prosecutors, they come to find out they were having an affair and all this. It was a soap opera. This was a movie. They ended up making a movie out of it, or was it a miniseries? A couple of years ago, I think Cuba Gooding Jr. was he played OJ. Yeah, I didn't watch it, but but yeah, they had that. It was just ridiculous. I think John Travolta was in that too. But anyways, yeah, it was just foolishness, man. But the end result came out. I remember this day because it lives in infamy. I was in high school. I was going to high school. We were in class, and the verdict came. And teacher turned on the TV, and the white lady, of course, and she turned on the TV so we can watch it, watch the verdict. I don't know why this was a class project or whatever, but she wanted to see it live. And this is around the time we didn't have internet, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have all this, we didn't have smartphones, cell phones at all, but we didn't have instant information back then. So if it was on TV, we had to watch it ASAP. So turned it on in class. Oh my God, I'll never. this is. It's sad that I remember this so vividly, but I can't remember one lesson taught in the 4 years I was in high school. But anywho's, they read the verdict, not guilty. That woman got up from that chair and immediately turned off the TV, and gave us about 2 or 3 quizzes. Told her, that woman was hot. If she could have thrown that desk, she would have threw it. She was hot. And I was wondering, why is she so mad? Is she related to the Goldmans or the Brown family? I just couldn't understand. She was so mad. And so, mind, I was 16 at the time. And so I ain't really into all that. So I didn't know what was going on until we got out of school. Well, we got out of that class. And when we got out of the class, you could see kind of what's going on. You kind of got a feeling of, okay, not everybody is on board with this verdict. All the black kids were cool. All the black kids were cheering. Yeah, he got off. Yeah, everybody was. But all the white kids were hot. And this was like the first time in my lifetime, 16 years old, and I saw an actual segregation of sorts, a racial divide. And it blew my mind. And it blew my mind even more because at the time, I was dating a white girl. And we broke up that day. We broke up that day. I can't remember who broke up with who, but that was the day. That day, the verdict ended that relationship. Now, that ain't the reason, at least according to her. That wasn't the reason. Like I said, I can't remember who. I'm leaning towards her. I'm leaning towards her. But that's neither here nor there. We'll get into that another time. But yeah, it was that bad. It was so much racial tension around that time, and I jokingly said at the beginning of this episode that, O.J. Simpson is the cause of it, but not really. He wasn't the cause of it, but this particular incident really just shined the light on it. This ain't nothing new. It just brought it to the forefront. That's like now when you hear all these racists on podcasts and TV shows and, running for president. You hear all this stuff and they're all so open with it now. It's not that times have changed and people have become racist. They always been racist. They just been closeted racist. Now they feel comfortable enough to be racist, with social media. They get behind their little keyboards and go crazy. They have the freedom now to say what they want to say. And that's all that is. It has nothing to do with the changing times. I guess it is changing times with the technology and stuff. But that's just an avenue for people to say what they truly feel. And unfortunately, they truly are horrible people. And so yeah, that's the trial in a nutshell. He was acquitted. After the trial, the families of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson filed a civil lawsuit against OJ and ultimately won that suit, wrongful death suit, which quote unquote found him guilty of the murders. Would He didn't have to go to jail. It was just a civil suit, but he had to pay. Um, this was on February the 5th, 1997, when a civil jury unanimously found OJ liable for the wrongful death of and battery against Ron Goldman and the battery against Nicole Brown. Now Nicole Brown's family, they did not file a wrongful death claim. They didn't file it. This was more of Ron Goldman's family. Now OJ was ordered to pay $33.5 million in damages, $8.5 million in compensatory damages to the Goldman family, and $12.5 million in punitive damages to each family. His net worth at the time was $11 million. It was no way that money was going to. Actually, I think I read somewhere, as of the time of his death, he hadn't paid a dime to that. He hadn't paid a dime towards all that. It's ridiculous. But in any event, in 1997, OJ defaulted on his mortgage of his house in which he lived for 20 years. In February of 1999, an auction of OJ's Heisman Trophy and other belongings netted around $500,000, which went to the Goldman family. The Goldman family also tried to collect on OJ's NFL $28,000 a year pension, but they failed to collect any of that money. In June of 2022, Ron Goldman's father, Fred, alleged in court papers intended to keep the wrongful death and battery judgments viable that OJ owed $96 million due to significant interest generated on the initial order to pay damages. In 2006, publisher Reagan Books had planned to release O.J. Simpson book, If I Did It, which was supposed to be his account on how he would hypothetically kill Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. I'm not making this up. This actually was a real thing. The publishing deal allegedly started when Reagan Books' employer, Juliet Reagan, received a phone call from OJ's lawyers who said he was ready to confess to the murders. Reagan claimed the word "if" was put on the title so that OJ would have probable deniability when his children read the book, because he couldn't tell them that he actually done it. The book was scheduled for release in November of 2006, but was canceled beforehand due to public outcry. Also canceled was a scheduled TV interview with Fox. On the night of September 13th, 2007, a group of men led by OJ entered a room at the Palace Station Hotel Casino and took sports memorabilia at gunpoint, which resulted in OJ being questioned by police. OJ admitted to taking the items, which he said had been stolen from him, but denied breaking into the hotel room. He also denied that he and anyone else carried the gun. He was initially released after questioning. 2 days later, however, O.J. Simpson was arrested and he was initially held without bail. Along with the 3 other men, O.J. was charged with multiple felony counts, including criminal conspiracy, kidnapping, assault, robbery, and using a deadly weapon. Bail was set at $125,000 with stipulations that OJ had no contact with the co-defendants and that he surrendered his passport. OJ did not enter a plea. By the end of October 2007, all 3 of OJ's co-defendants had plea bargained with the prosecution in the Clark County, Nevada court case, accepting plea agreements in exchange for reduced charges and their testimony against O.J. Simpson and three other co-defendants, including testimony that guns were used in the robbery. Co-defendant Michael McClinton told the Las Vegas judge that he too would plead guilty to reduce charges and testify against O.J. that guns were used in the robbery. After the hearing, the judge ordered that O.J. be tried for the robbery. And unlike his murder trial, which was a majority black jury, this was a stark contrast to that. This trial was an all white jury, and he was ultimately found guilty of all charges on October the 3rd, 2008. He was ultimately sentenced to a total of 33 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 9 years, in which he was paroled in 2013 and released from prison. In February of this year, it was reported that O.J. Simpson was undergoing treatment for prostate cancer. A week and a half before his death, O.J. Simpson canceled a scheduled memorabilia signing because he was too ill to attend. In the final days before his death, all of O.J.'s children visited him. He died of the disease on April the 10th, 2024, at the age of 76 years old. At the time, O.J. had been living in Las Vegas, right next to the Rhodes Ranch Golf Club. O.J. death was met with mixed reactions across social media and the media as a whole, with his legal history overshadowing his sports achievements. The NFL originally reported Simpson's death with an Associated Press copy, and neither the Bills, 49ers, or USC published any condolences or tributes following his death. The Goldman family issued a statement that read, "The hope for true accountability has ended. Thank you for keeping our family and most importantly, Ron, in your hearts." The White House press secretary, which I don't know why they said anything, but hey, they did what they did. She had a short statement that said, "Our thoughts are with the families during this difficult time. I know that they have asked for some privacy, and so we're going to respect that." Sports analyst Stephen A. Smith from First Take on ESPN, he mentioned one of the greatest athletes we have ever seen, but all that pales in comparisons to him being perceived as a double murderer. David Zucker, who is the director of the Naked Gun movies, posted a picture of Simpson on his Instagram with the caption, "His acting was a lot like his murdering. He got away with it, but no one believed him." I mean, look, it is what it is. I get it. I get it. The man, I, I think everybody who got half a brain can pretty much say that the man murdered the people. But I mean, we can't. It is what it is. He got away with it. It stinks. It stinks. It stinks when anybody get away with anything. Man, it stinks. But it is what it is. People walk away from crimes every day and nobody says a word. So my problem with it is, honestly, all jokes aside, my problem with it is this. He has children. As stated before, he has children. And they have to hear this. They have to read this. You know, not just the children he had with Nicole Brown, but the children he had from his first marriage. But especially the ones, Sydney and Justin, who are from Nicole Brown Simpsons. And you think they want to hear this all the time? That their dad killed their mom and all this other stuff. It's, I don't know, man. It's a slippery slope. And I think we just need to chill, you know? We need to chill out with that. I mean, that was pretty harsh from David Zucker. That was pretty harsh, but funny at the same time. It was funny at the same time. But we done rattled on enough about the life of OJ Simpson. Now let's get into one of his acting prowesses. And this is, I guess, what he's most notably known for, of course, the 1988 crime comedy film directed by David Zucker, The Naked Gun, from the Files of Police Squad. Look, I rewatched this movie yesterday in preparation for this show because it's been a while since I watched The Naked Gun, and I didn't realize it until I was, preparing for this show. And I was like, which one am I going to review? Am I going to review that TV thing that they had, that show about the trial and all that? I said, nah. I'm gonna do when I think of OJ Simpson, other than football, I'm talking about the good stuff. Uh, when I think of OJ Simpson, I think of The Naked Gun. And I've reviewed The Naked Gun before, when the Queen passed away, because she is the subject of this particular movie. But I said I got to do it again. And I rewatched it yesterday, and from the opening scene, I just burst out laughing. And my wife was in the bag. She was laying down. She was tired. And I felt so bad. I'm trying to hold in the laugh. I couldn't. I'm just laughing out loud. The poor woman couldn't get any rest. But it was hilarious. But this movie still cracks me up. Like, I've seen it when I watched it. It was like I watched it for the first time. It still cracks me up. I love slapstick, and I love fast paced slapstick. I love films like Airplane, which was also directed by David Zucker. Top Secret with Val Kilmer. I think that was directed by David Zucker too. But either way, I guess I like David Zucker. But in any event, this was hilarious. I love this style of comedy where it isn't just the visual. The visual comedy is top notch. It isn't just what's right in front of you. You have to pay attention what's behind the actors. The background actors who are walking in the background there. It could be something going on there that is completely out of place, but it will crack you up. And not only with the visual, the dialogue, the way this film is written, it is hilarious. Every line is a joke. Every single line is a joke. And to go along with the actual slapstick comedy, that's going on around it. Now, the two sequels that followed this wasn't as funny, wasn't as good, but it was still funny. But nothing like this movie. Police Squad was a TV show. The Police Squad, short-lived, but it was a TV show. And I don't recall watching it, but as of late, I've seen them pop up, little clips pop up on TikTok or Instagram, wherever. I've seen these little clips of it, and I vaguely remember it, and that was hilarious. Those shows were hilarious. I guess it was they were before their time, but I love this style of comedy. To be more accurate, I miss this style of comedy because we haven't gotten it in so long. But man, this movie slaps. This movie stars Leslie Nielsen as Frank Drebin, of Police Squad, Priscilla Presley, George Kennedy, Ricardo Montalban, Khan himself, and O.J. Simpson. Lieutenant Drebin or Leslie Nielsen. And what makes this movie so unique is that Leslie Nielsen, if you know his filmography, if you watched him before this, other than Airplane, which he was in which is a comedy, of course. Before that, he was in these westerns. He was in dramatic films and stuff like that. Nobody you would pick to be in this screwball, silly slapstick comedy. But it worked. His straight delivery works, and it works in spades. He took that little character that he had in Airplane as the doctor and just expanded on it, and it works beautifully here, man. It fits. Frank Drebin is one of my favorite characters in film, period. I love Frank Drebin because he's so stupid, but yet gets the job done. He's all about getting the job done. Um, to the detriment to a lot of people, but he's about getting the job done. This is basically a spoof of Dragnet. If you ever watched that old TV show, which coincidentally O.J. Simpson guest starred on, back in the day, back in the early '70s. But yeah, man, this is an awesome movie, and O.J. Simpson is awesome in it. I know that it kills a lot of people to hear it. I know, no pun intended. I probably should have used a different. I probably should use a different one. I know it's gonna hurt your hearts to hear that, but it is the truth. O.J. Simpson was awesome here, man. He was hilarious in this movie. That scene, that, that scene. See, this is why I didn't want to do it like this because it's so unprofessional. Because I'm gonna laugh throughout the scene when he gets shot up and falls off the boat is the funniest thing you ever gonna see. He gets shot 1,000,001 times, and he he bumps his head on the. He hits his head on the little steel thing that's over his head. He grabs his head, and then he falls over to this furnace, puts his hand on it, and it burns his hand. And he burns his hand. And his little scream that he gave there, I actually hit the floor on that one. And then he bumps up against a wall, that wet paint, and he looks at the side, and then he looks at his shirt. And he got the paint on. He like, oh no. I don't know, man. Look, the whole little setup there was just hilarious. It was hilarious, and he survived all that. That's what makes it even better. But he was awesome, man. And for all of you who hate O.J. Simpson, this is the perfect film for you because he gets brutalized, shot, stabbed, burned, folded in half, thrown off of a boat, thrown downstairs, all that stuff. He gets abused the entire film. And so you can sit there and enjoy and watch him get get this done to him. But at the time, it was hilarious, man. It still is. But it was hilarious to think of O.J. Simpson in this type of movie. George Kennedy was funny. George Kennedy is another serious actor. Didn't really think him to be in this type of film, but he was in it and he did awesome. Priscilla Presley was great in here. The personification of sexy, just downright beautiful and funny that we didn't know. That's the beauty of this type of film, is that all of these actors in this movie are not known for comedy, but everybody is funny. Everybody is funny. The story is funny. The gags are funny. It's just downright funny. The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad, released in 1988, gets a letter grade of an A+. One of the greatest comedies of all time. This is one of the funniest movies. I don't care who you are, white, black, Christian, atheist, man, woman, child, grown adult. It doesn't matter. This is hilarious for every single person walking planet Earth. Absolutely love this movie. And we're getting the remake of this movie next year. Believe it or not, we're getting The Naked Gun yet again. Unfortunately, Liam Neeson passed away a few years back. Actually, I think every actor in this film has passed away officially now that O.J. Simpson, at least the lead actors, have passed away. So I don't think we're going to see none of these actors here. But taking over for Liam Neeson as Frank Drebin in this new film that comes out in 2025 is none other than Liam Neeson. I guess they wanted the same initials to play Frank Drebin. But yeah, Liam Neeson, once again, not known for comedy, and especially a comedy like this. I am so intrigued by that concept. I think it's gonna work. I think that will work, and I can't wait to see that happen. But anyways, Yes, R.I.P. to O.J. Simpson. Whether he committed those crimes or not, all the stuff that he did throughout his life, personal life, um, look, I can't convict him for it. I definitely can't do it now. Neither of us can. None of us can, should I say. And so we need to let it go. Now he's going to be judged for it. Now he's going to come to he can't run from this one. There's no Johnny Cochran and Robert Shapiro and Robert Kardashian that can help him out this go around. So he's going to have to answer for whatever he did if he truly did it. And so there's that. There's that. I know a lot of people wanted him to have to answer for it on this side, but that wasn't in the cards. But he will. if it's true, he will. But yeah, I just felt it was appropriate to not only mention what took place in 1994, but also throughout his life, because he didn't quote unquote just murder people. He also accomplished a lot on the football field, behind the camera, or in front of the camera. He has done some awesome things in his life, and I think that needed to be pointed out. We can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. He did do some good stuff, even though allegedly he did some horrible things as well. And so I would like to know, what's your stance on the OJ thing, or, well, let me rephrase, because I know what everybody's stance is. I know what everybody's stance is, and because we all on the same page there. Let me put it to you this way. Do you appreciate the accomplishments that he had in his life, on the football field and acting, rather than focusing on the negative of that trial and the murders and stuff like that? That's where I like to go, because I like to think positive. I don't like to focus on the negative, but I know a lot of people do, and I know in some cases you can't avoid it. But it just really stuck in my craw, man, when they released the headline, acquitted murderer. O.J. Simpson dead at 76 years old. I was like, really? Y'all couldn't come up with a better headline? It just blew my mind. It really blew my mind. But anyway, I would like to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You could also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to movie goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this look at the life and times of one Orenthal James Simpson, most commonly known as OJ the Juice. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love one another until we speak again. You all be blessed.